Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Cardboard Herald's Off the Table, your weekly gaming news in 10 minutes or less. We start our news segment off on a sad note today because we're saying goodbye to veteran game designer Richard Berg. Berg is the designer of dozens of games, but most notably the SPI War of the Ring, Terrible Sword, and the legendary Campaign for North Africa. This is certainly a loss for this hobby, but maybe it's a good time for seasoned gamers to reflect on where we come from, and maybe for new gamers to discover some of our gaming heritage. So our condolences to the family. Goodbye, Richard. Next up, brightening our day, taking us away from that sad news, we have the BGG Artist Series 3 up for pre-orders. So if you aren't aware of these are sets of high-end prints that are illustrations done by some of the top names in board game artistry, doing iconic images representing, interpreting certain games that have been notable throughout the history of this hobby. And so this series is a set of 4. We have Terraforming Mars, Race for the Galaxy, Dead of Winter, and Gloomhaven. And man, look at that Dead of Winter one. They are all drop dead gorgeous. And while all of them up until this point have been incredible, honestly, this is one of my favorite projects that are not board games in the board gaming community. But this set here, I think this is the one that's going to get me to make the plunge. I mean, these are absolutely stunning, and honestly, if I get these 4, I'll probably end up getting all the rest of them. But I can't feel too bad about that because it's supporting the hub of our community and recognizing some of the top artists and games of all time. And now we're going to start rolling over into the GenCon stuff because it's GenCon right now when I'm recording this, and so undoubtedly there's going to be more stuff that's coming after I record this before this goes live. We'll talk about that next episode, but the stuff that we have right now. And the first little bit here is actually a news topic rather than a game announcement, so I shoved it here because Koniezcka, the head game developer or head of game development over at FFG, is leaving Fantasy Flight Games but staying in Asmodee. He and FFG announced that Koniezcka is founding a new studio called Unexpected Games, and hopefully this will free up Corey and whatever team he has under him to focus on original projects that maybe not tied to all the IPs that FFG is focusing on. I mean, those are cool, but also I like seeing some really original stuff, especially some of that kind of mid-years FFG stuff that they don't touch on that much anymore. And so we might as well go over to our game announcements. So we got a slew of stuff from FFG here. Well, we got a ton of stuff from all kinds of people, so I'm not going too in-depth on every single one of these. But FFG announced Arkham Horror, the Final Hour, and Marvel Champions, the card game. Oh, and Keyforge, Worlds Collide. So Arkham Horror, the Final Hour is just another game set in their Arkham Horror Cthulhu verse thing. You know, they have all the artwork, and it's going to be probably a new thing, but also reuse some other things. Undoubtedly, you'll play a Schizo tool at one point or another. And then the Marvel Champions card game is interesting because it's an LCG, their living card game series, where you're not buying random packs, but you're getting set cards in a box. And Fantasy Flight is so self-aware that they announced as a highlight of this that you won't have to buy multiple starter packs to get all the cards. Yeah, a starter pack of this is going to have a full playset of all the cards. Like, that's incredible that they had to take this long to announce it. I never thought I'd see the day. But it's still very cool sounding, and I like Marvel, and I like cooperative games, and I like their LCGs. I don't think it'll oust my baby Lord of the Rings LCG, but I'm excited for this. Oh, and yeah, that Keyforge thing is more Keyforge for anyone who wants that. I don't know. You guys know my opinions on Keyforge. Convince me why this is a cool announcement. Then Space Cowboys has Marvel Splendor coming because of course they are. And it looks like maybe there are Infinity Stones that you're trading on. I don't know. We'll see if this is actually a reskin or if this is going to have some new mechanisms to it. I'd be kind of disappointed if it were just a Marvel reskin of Splendor. And then Gamelyn Games announced Ultra Tiny Epic Galaxies. CMON and Guillotine Games announced Zombicide 2nd Edition. And then CMON also announced Cyberpunk 2077, the card game. Burgle Bros is getting a sequel, Burgle Bros 2, The Casino Caper. It'll be heading to Kickstarter on August 15th. And Steamforge Games is releasing Ni no Kuni 2, the board game. Isn't that the video game where you play as the president of the United States and get sent to a fantasy land and shoot up monsters with a gun? I don't know. It's a very confusing property. I love JRPGs, but that seemed even a little weird for me. Maybe I'll get around to playing it someday, or maybe I'll just check out the board game. Whew! That is definitely our biggest announcement segment yet. Do I get breaks on this thing? All right, so that will bring us over to highlights. And because we talked so much about GenCon this episode, I thought, why not talk about something that's going to be making its debut at GenCon? One of the hottest, most anticipated games of the year is Restoration Games' Unmatched. And this is the spiritual successor or re-implementation, depending on how you look at it, of Star Wars Epic Duels, which was a co-design by Rob Daviau. And Rob Daviau is part of Restoration Games, who is putting out Unmatched. So there's a whole lineage here that made it such a fascinating project to me, and people are really excited about it. Well, it just so happens that recently I was talking to Rob Daviau about all kinds of stuff, mainly in particular during this interview, because I've talked to him in the past. I wanted to know more about like his day-to-day, the things that he's doing when he's working on a schedule, how he manages many different projects, co-designs, conflict resolution, all these kinds of things, but I couldn't resist to ask a couple questions about Unmatched. So here's an excerpt of that conversation.
So first of all, because I had worked on the original with Craig Van Ness's Star Wars Epic Duels in 2002, I recused myself from some of the restoration work and let Justin Jacobson, the president of Restoration Game, and J.R. Honeycutt, the designer, I'm like, you guys work on this for like 6 months. Pitch stuff to me. But I don't want it, because I'll just repeat the same thing, right? I'll be like, oh, This is how we do it, right? Like, I'm not going to think. I would think of some new ideas, but I wanted radical new ideas, not, oh, let me tweak this and make a 4 from a 3. So we kind of looked at it and mapped out the problems. They found, they were on solutions, and we went back and forth on it. And then later in the process, I started play testing stuff and said, oh, yeah, this is a different game. Let me do development work on it, right? And kind of get my hands dirty on it after it had taken a journey through other people's hands. Star Wars Epic Duels was designed to be a 6-week opportunistic game that came out as a tie-in to Attack of the Clones for 8-year-olds.
That sounds reductive, but accurate.
No. So the question is, you get that on your desk at Hasbro. The question is, do you make a piece of crap, or do you try to make the best game you can, because you know that those 8-year-olds may grow up to be gamers, and that, someday you might meet them and be like, I played that as a kid with my dad, and I loved it tremendously, and my dad has since passed away, and thank you for the memories of my childhood.
Thank you to Rob for coming onto the show, and if you are interested in checking out that whole interview, I'm going to have it on this channel later this week, so stay tuned for that. And now, for our final segment of the day, because we like to keep things tight around here, we have our question segment. And because we're talking about gaming heritage, and because GenCon has a lot to do with the development and heritage of board games, I was feeling nostalgic. And we talked about revolutionary games, games that kind of changed your mind about what games could be on last episode. So this episode, I want to know about who it was that made a big impact on you as a gamer. Was it a dad, an uncle, a sister, a cousin, a friend at school, someone who introduced you to something, who shepherded you into games? I can think of a couple of people in particular. I mean, of course, there's my older brother who introduced me to Hero Quest and Magic and Dungeons and Dragons. Or I can think of my friend Peter Bradley, who we played all kinds of things, but most notably, he showed me a thing called Dominion, which blew my mind. Or I could think of Mo Marin, who was the guy who was like, yo, if you're going to work at this comic shop with me, let me show you a real card game. Showed me L5R, and man, I was a Legend of Five Rings player for like years to come, showing up at multiple tourneys per week. But I want to know, who are some of the people that made the biggest impact on you Let me know in the comments below. And that is going to do it for the show today. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Jack for the Cardboard Herald, and I will be talking to you next week. Probably with a bunch of other Gen Con stuff. If you enjoyed this video, we have all kinds of other reviews, interviews, and recommendations via writing, podcasts, and video here on our channel and website, cardboardherald.com. Our content is audience supported, so if you want to show your support, please visit our Patreon. Thank you so much for watching. This has been the Cardboard Herald.